Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Elevated Nonsense podcast, where we intrepid weirdos discuss all of the weird and wonderful things in our universe. I am Neptune. I will be your host for this lovely episode, and I am joined today by the wonderful Dani.
Hello.
Yes, we have a very small group for this episode.
But it's going to be great.
Yes, so while I am host, it will most likely be a lot of exchange between the two of us, very much sort of structured, but not really.
I'm
So
sorry.
yeah, before you were good, Dani.
Okay, I
But
just killed a
before
water
we
bottle.
before we get into the actual topic that we're talking about, we do have some patron shout outs to give out. Shout out to the wonderful JD for being subscribed to our Patreon at the Tree Eater level. If you would like to join JD in subbing to our Patreon, you can do that at it's patreon.com/elevated nonsense. Is that the link?
I believe so. The link is also in our episode notes. You'd think we would know our
Yes.
own links
You
off the
you
top
would
of our
think we
head.
would know our own links, but yes,
It's fine.
anything I mention in this intro as far as places to support us or contact us are all going to be in the channel description and episode descriptions and all of that.
Yeah,
So
but you
yeah,
can tell we're very professional.
super professional. Um, but yes, if you want to join the Patreon, help support the podcast, and help us make new, cool, and exciting episodes, you can do that via the link in our show description. If you if Patreon's not your thing, you can also support us via our merch shop on Redbubble. You can get our podcast logo, the Elevated Nonsense logo, on pretty much anything you can think of:
Yeah,
hats,
we've got
shirts,
shirts,
mugs,
mugs, stickers,
stickers.
magnets, mouse pads, like
Yeah.
everything. Like, not
Any,
everything, but a lot of things.
yeah, most things that you can think of to slap a logo on, it's probably
We
in the
did it.
Redbubble store.
And we don't just have our logo, we also have a fun little whale meme from
Oh my
Ian's
god, is the whale
stream.
meme in the shop?
The
Oh
whale meme
my
is
god.
in the shop, yes. So if any of you don't know what I'm talking about, I can't remember what episode it was that we did it. We did a Dreams and Nightmares episode where Ian talked about this whale meme that he had created in his dream, and we made it a reality and put it on shirts. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty great.
Yeah, no, if anyone's wondering why I seem out of it, it's because this is the first episode I've been able to be a part of in like a month.
Yeah,
So, or something like that.
it's been a
Uh,
while. Yeah.
it's been a while for me, and that is because of mostly because of my job. But here I am back from the capitalistic hellscape. Um, but yeah, so our Patreon and our shop are ways that you can support us financially, help us create new and exciting episodes. Um, you can also just chat with us, offer feedback, get announcements for new episodes via our Discord, link for which is also in the show description.
Yeah, we are
On
all very active on Discord, so
Yes.
we want you guys to come join us and come be active with us. Let's all be friends.
Heck yeah. We love more friends.
All the friends.
Yes. And yeah, and of course we have the podcast social medias, Twitter, Instagram, Is there one I'm forgetting? Or is it just the
Um,
Twitter and Instagram?
we've
TikTok.
got Twitter, Instagram, we've got TikTok. We also have a YouTube that's got a
We
few
do,
videos
yes.
because for those that have issues just listening to things and being able to pay attention, we record our videos so you have something to kind of stimulate you a little bit more. Those are all on our YouTube channel. Again, it's all linked in our episode notes in every single one of our episodes. So feel free to
Heck
just
yeah.
subscribe there as
Yes.
well.
Super fun. Honestly, the fact that we video record our Discord calls for these episodes is super cool. I'm glad that we
Yeah.
started doing that.
Yeah, I'm glad we were able to do that. Yeah, because I think it was Alex that brought up the fact that they have a hard time just listening to things and being able to focus, which, I
Yeah,
completely get.
honestly valid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why we have
But
started recording so that we can be accommodating to more people.
yes, indeed. And okay, and I think with that, I
I
have
think that is
sufficiently
it.
plugged all of our things that we have.
I think so.
And so let's get into the topic at hand, kind of continuing the I don't know, sci-fi theme that we're having. Uh, kind of continuing this sci-fi theme, we are going to be discussing time travel. This
Woo!
is, yes, very exciting. This is honestly, as far as like scientific discussion goes, I love talking about stuff like this, like anything space, uh, and time travel. Anything sci-fi like that is honestly a favorite thing for me to talk about. And so
Yeah.
it's like, oh, well, yeah, actually, Danny, you suggested the time travel episode, and I was like, yes, that's perfect.
Yeah. Because, it's always just like a fun thought experiment. Like
It
in
is.
anything is like when if you had access to a time travel machine, like whatever form it took, whether we're taking a book out of Hot Tub Time Machine, but like where would you time travel? Like where would you go? Why? Like all that stuff. It's just it's so fun to just think about like completely theoretical things just for fun, like that, like fun scenarios and
It
that
is.
stuff.
Yeah, no, it's super awesome. So yeah, for this topic, it will kind of be uh, sort of structured in that we will have two parts to this discussion. The first part being like stuff like, is time travel possible? What are some ramifications of time travel? Some stuff that can happen due to that. And then the second part, the more fun part, is going to be like, if you could time travel, where would you want to go and
Hmm.
why type of thing.
But but other than that, it's going to be very loosey goosey because it's just the two of us, and this was a very last minute topic decision.
Yeah, should be fun
But
though.
it's still going to be so much fun.
All right, so
So
I guess we'll kick it off by just asking, uh, do you think time travel is possible?
I don't think it is like in our current society. Like, do I believe that we could find the ability to time travel someday? Possibly. Like, I don't think it's like completely like out of left field to say so, or like that we could find something like similar to time travel. Like, even if we can't do like full fledged time travel, but even if we can do like little time skips, something like that. But like in our modern society in 2022, as we are recording this, time travel is not possible as far as I know.
As far as we know.
Yeah. Like we're not some like big top secret scientists or anything. We are just normal people.
Yeah. normal internet people.
We play video games.
Hmm. Uh, but yeah, kind of in the same on the same page as you, Danny. I do like because I was in college. I was an engineer major for about
Oh.
3 years. I did, and so like my last year before I switched majors, I did take physics three. I took physics three, which was like a like a foundational theoretical physics is what it pretty
Mm-hmm.
much boiled down to. And so we did touch on we did touch on stuff like relativity and like uh basically just different stuff like that. And so like theoretically, yes, time travel is possible, but it is not at all practical because
Yeah.
yeah, it is possible. It is not at all practical because you would essentially one you need to be able to get an object to move faster than the speed of light, which is currently not possible at all.
Yeah.
um and yeah, not to mention you also need a way to like secure that object so that it doesn't get ripped into atoms by the sheer
Mm-hmm.
force of traveling at that speed.
Well, and you'd need like a huge energy source to be able to like even generate enough power to be able to do something like that.
Exactly.
Like even like just for a few seconds too, you know?
Yes. Yeah,
And
no.
then who
So
knows if like you time travel like somewhere in the past or whatever, you can't guarantee that you'll have that energy to get back too, you know?
exactly. Yeah, no, it'd take massive amounts of power and who knows if you would even be able to come back afterwards. And which is kind of that's on it you that reminded me specifically of the H.G. Wells story The Time Machine because
Okay.
he literally the whole premise of the book is this like uh he's like a scientist college dude. He has created his own time machine and it functions and he is able to travel into the far distant future, so much so that society has all but collapsed, and you are essentially back into like tribal type periods.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like he has gone that far ahead past full advancement and back into the
Oh.
primal age, essentially. And so, because of that, he gets he gets stuck there and he doesn't have the parts or the energy source that he needs in order to make another jump to try and get back to his own time.
Yeah, like that, like in and of itself is like going so far in the future that like you've passed like full advancement and like almost like regressed into time. That's like a cool idea. Because normally, like when you think future time travel, like you jump thousands of years in the future, like everything's floating, like we're in space, like we're in a different planet, like all that. Like you don't think like what could happen. Because sometimes, like you could just get so technologically advanced that you just blow yourselves up and like have to start over again, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, and like spoilers, I guess, if you haven't read The Time Machine or watched any of the movie adaptations. But The Time Machine runs with the theory that time is cyclical. And so he finds after he's able to fix the time machine, he finds that he can only travel forwards. He can't travel backwards in time.
Oh.
And so the ending of the book is essentially he keeps making forward jumps, essentially almost leaving the lever activated so that he keeps traveling forward on his fixed point of his time machine. And so he essentially stays in his time machine and watches as again, Earth builds, collapses until the inevitable heat death of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And he is left in this void space until the Big Bang happens again. And everything just starts over, and he keeps going until he finally reaches his classroom where he started, but however many millions, billions of years into the future.
That's insane.
I know, right?
Holy crap. Wow.
Yeah, no, it's honestly wild that like what with this book was published in like the early 1900s,
Yeah.
operating under the theory that time is just a giant wheel that just keeps repeating itself over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, like a big theory in like sci-fi and stuff like that is like the Ouroboros theory. Like it's
Yeah.
just a snake eating its tail, you know?
Hmm.
And I vibe with that, you know? I
Yeah.
vibe.
It's super cool. Honestly, the even the movie adaptations do it like really well, visualizing that. Like I think I've seen the movie adaptation from like the 1950s, 60s or something like that, and it's honestly
Mm.
pretty good. Like if you're into that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I honestly like just need to get into more like sci-fi stuff in general. Like
Hmm.
the idea of like time travel is like really cool to me, but it's just been hard for me to get into it because you know I'm like a fantasy nerd through and through, and like those don't always mix
Right. Yeah.
the
I,
best.
c- I think I'm kind of the opposite of you in a way where I grew up with both like sci-fi and fantasy, but like especially around like middle school and high school, I was more drawn to science fiction,
Mm,
and so
yeah, which is fair.
got more into that genre and exploring it and stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely like trying to get more into sci-fi and stuff. It's
Hmm.
good like um because like specifically like with books when like a favorite author of mine writes a book that has like sci-fi elements to it, I'm just like, "Ooh, this is like a good like I already know I like this author. This is like a good like stepping stone to get deeper into like the harder sci-fi stuff." Because
Yeah.
most of the sci-fi that I've read has been like mostly on like the YA range, you know, so like it's
Okay.
not super in depth or like intense or anything.
Yeah.
Because I mean that's just what I like to read. So
Hmm. Honestly, if you're looking for like a good, well, I don't know. I'm mostly recommending this book because it's one of my favorites. But I really like the book Foundation by Isaac Asimov.
oh yeah,
Um,
we have it. Yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah, no,
yeah I believe so. I
it's
can't see
been
the sci-fi
it's been
shelf
a
in
bit
here.
since I've read it, but it is still one of my favorite science fiction
Mm,
books. Which,
yeah.
if you're not familiar with the plot of the book, it is essentially, um, I mean, it takes the timeline of the book takes place over like hundreds of years technically, but it essentially follows that like this like statistician. I feel bad that I've forgotten his name, but like this really big and famous like mathematician, statistician has essentially calculated that the has essentially calculated total societal collapse in like X number hundreds of years or whatever. And so he goes to like planetary government. This is like taking place after like humanity has already spread out among different planets
Mm-hmm.
and there's like a planetary government system, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And so he goes to the government and he's like, I have calculated that this entire our entire way of life will collapse in like 5,000 years or whatever. And they're all like, you're lying. There's no way you could have figured that out. And he's essentially like, well, tough shit, because guess what I'm doing? Uh, I would like, essentially like, you have to believe me because you have no choice. And I want to start a project. I want to start like an encyclopedia project on this distant planet to essentially record all of humanity's knowledge and experience over its entire lifetime so that by the time that society does collapse, we will have all of that knowledge preserved and we can find it again in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And I will not say any more than that.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Like I will say that Caleb is pretty into sci-fi. Like his favorite genre is cyberpunk, which
Hmm. Yeah.
leans like pretty heavily into sci-fi punk type of stuff, like
Yes.
cyberpunk, sci-fi punk aesthetic.
Yeah.
So we've got quite a few like books and like media of that type of stuff, because
Okay.
one of Caleb's favorite books is Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which is
Honestly
what the
valid.
Blade Runner movies were based on.
Yeah.
It is also crazy to think that Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is based in 2019. Like that's when it takes place.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Because like it was written in like the 50s or 60s.
Hmm.
And so they're just like, what do I think is going to happen in the 2000s? And we're just like, nah.
That's exactly how I feel about 2001, which was also written in like the 1950s. And they were like, oh, yeah, by 2001, we are going to have large space stations and ships that travel between distant
Yeah.
planets in the solar
Like,
system.
it is, like, don't get me wrong, we have had huge leaps in technology since those stuff were written,
Yes.
but they were a little too optimistic. That's
Yes.
why, like, my problem with, like, sci-fi is stuff written, like in the grand scheme of things, only like a handful of years. Because, like, honestly, if you think about it, in the grand scheme of the universe, 50 years is not a lot of time.
Yeah. And
So,
honestly,
like,
even I think what sparked that like optimism, I mean, space in general was big
mhm.
in the 50s and 60s. And
Yeah, well, and like, it was
even in
insane,
that
like, making it
decade,
even to the moon.
yes, exactly. Like even in that 10, 15 years in that time, there were a lot of like scientific advancement specifically for space exploration.
Hmm. And, like, the crazy thing is, I think there's only, like, 50 to 60 years from when when the Wright brothers flew the first plane to when we landed on the moon.
Yeah,
Like, that's insane.
it is insane.
That type of technological jump.
Yes.
Yeah. Going back to, like, the topic of if time travel would be possible, I saw this thing on the internet years ago that's just kind of like just been sitting in one of the boxes in the back of my head.
Hmm.
But it has to do, like, the bacteria in human bodies has evolved so much over the years, like, with the human bodies, of course, and like with vaccines nowadays and stuff.
Right.
If we went to, like, travel back in time, the diseases that we just naturally have with us would kill the whole population if we go back in time. But if we went forward in time, all of their, like, advanced bacteria and diseases would kill us. And, like, I just think that's a cool theory.
I don't think that I'd ever considered like
Yeah.
bacterial infections and stuff like that. That's
Yeah, because, like,
wild.
we're not the only ones evolving in the universe. Like,
Right.
bacteria, infections, like, disease and stuff like that. That's why, like, the Black Plague and the Spanish flu and stuff were so rough because they didn't have the proper things to combat it.
Bodies weren't
Whereas,
exposed to that, yeah.
yeah, whereas in these days and ages, we've got vaccines, we've been exposed to stuff over the years that we're just naturally more less affected by it.
Yes.
And so I always thought like that's just such a different take on the problems with time traveling than like I've ever seen, and I thought that was just
It
really
is.
cool.
It's a very it's a very global way of looking at it, I think is
Mhm.
the right word, because like most people say like, oh, you shouldn't time travel because you might go back and kill your grandfather or whatever, but like that's like such a selfish way of thinking about it.
Mhm.
And so like to have that reasoning that like, oh, because you're to have the bacteria that they're not used to would just wipe out a lot of different people.
Yeah, and like especially depending on how far back in time you go, like into like what era or whatever, like a single cough could like wipe out a whole valley, like a whole
Hmm.
village, you know? Because they just wouldn't have the immune systems to be able to fight off what we would consider a common cold, you know?
Hmm.
And then if we go into the future, what they would consider to be a common cold could be the next Black Death for us in our current stage, you know?
Yeah.
I've been
Yeah.
saying you know a lot.
You know. But yeah, that honestly, the idea just popped into my head because I know we have like our theories about like how the Black Plague started, but what if it was like a time traveler or two that came back and literally exposed so many people to new bacteria that their
Mm,
bodies weren't accustomed to?
yeah, like it's crazy.
Hmm.
And then like there's a lot of media these days about time travel and stuff. And I haven't watched a lot of time travel media again, but
Yeah.
like the one that I've watched most recently was not exactly time travel, but like it was Loki, the Marvel show.
Yeah.
And yeah, just the fact that, you know, bringing back what you said, like it could have been some sort of variant, like had made things go wrong, like that it was caused by someone to set the timeline right.
Yes.
Like honestly, like just the idea of timelines in general is
Is
like
wild.
insane.
You know,
It's hard to wrap your head around it.
without getting into multiverse theory and all of that,
Oh
since that's not
no.
what we're talking about.
Yeah, we are also not prepared enough to talk about like I think we'd
Yeah.
need like an actual like scientist for that. Like to explain like the possibilities and like theories surrounding it and stuff like, you know?
Hmm. But yeah. So yeah, I think we've like thoroughly discussed like what I wanted
Mhm.
to in the first part, like with
Yeah.
like is time
And
travel possible and what are the consequences of that?
yeah, and like now like the personal opinion stuff, like that we can also talk so much longer about that stuff because
Yeah,
like, you know, we don't have to be based in science or whatnot.
exactly.
Yeah,
So
like
like
let's
to use the question I posed earlier, like where if you could without consequence time travel anywhere to whatever time, where would you want to go?
I'd have like a few different places that I like to go. And like I like that we're thinking about like this without consequence cuz
Yeah,
in the grand scheme of things there is always going to be consequence for actions this
exactly.
large cuz like, you know, every action has its equal opposite reaction. It's it's classic physics law.
Good old Newton.
But yes. But yeah. The first question is, do you think you would go back in time first or forward in time first?
Oh, that is a good question.
Yeah. Because, like, I know I would definitely go back in time, but and forward in time. It's just, what would I do first, you know?
Right, yeah.
Like, that's just,
Hmm.
it's a hard question.
It really is. I don't even know if I've thought of my own answer to my own question. It,
Yeah, this was a very go with the flow episode.
mhm.
But honestly, I think what I would do is, like, I would go back in time first to kind of like familiarize myself with the experience, you know, like even if I'd go back in time like a week just to like get used to the experience, because who knows what your body would go through doing something like that, you
Yeah.
know, like talk about insane motion sickness. But like just to like familiarize myself with it, like get used to like the deja vu type aspect of it, because especially going back in time, it's a lot of it would be stuff we already know that we're taught in schools, or like um doing your own research on or stuff like that. It's all history.
Yeah.
I know what I would do first.
Okay.
I would go visit the Library of Alexandria.
Oh, fuck. Fuck. You're right.
Because we all know the world went
I'm over
downhill
here
from that.
I'm over here thinking about the moon landing, and then you're like, no, even further.
Oh yeah, no, if I was going back in time, I'd go back in time.
Hmm.
Especially as someone who is a big fan of ancient history, like I'm just casually like a fan of ancient history and like
Yeah.
ancient Greece, ancient Rome, ancient Egypt, like all that stuff. Like even like visiting a lot of like the Aztecs and stuff like that. Like long ago ancient tribes. Like it would be so cool to me. Like I would even go down to like biblical times. Like
Yeah.
Old Testament biblical times.
Yeah,
It would be
damn.
so fun.
You know, I it's funny because I did say without consequence. So I was like, because in my head I was like, oh, you can't go back to like the primordial period when like the earth is literally inhospitable. But like if you could withstand that, then it'd be cool to
Mm-hmm.
see.
Because I think in this instance, like if we have the ability to time travel to whenever and wherever we want, I think we would be able to have like the technology to go visit like inhabitable places, you know? Like
Hmm.
that's just me spitballing it like to make this theorizing thing more fun. Like that's
Yeah,
just those are the caveats that I add, you know?
right. Um yeah, I think we as far as going back in time, I think we hit a couple good ones like the moon landing, the Library of
Mhm.
Alexandria. Um yeah,
You
even
know,
like
the two
you know,
biggest events in history. Like those are the only two events in history that matter.
yeah. I don't know, there but like there are a lot of like other places to visit in history as well.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um
and
yeah.
like I'm also going with like the idea that like not only could you time travel, but like you could also like jump to any location,
Yes, exactly.
so you don't have to take old timey travel methods.
You know, we're thinking TARDIS mechanics, right?
Yeah, basically, like if we have our own personal TARDIS, what would we like? What would we do? Where would we go?
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of mine would be historical events. I think because I'm casual history fan. You know, like
Yes.
I love stuff like this, seeing what could have happened, like seeing what has happened, learning from that. I'd also love to like go back to those periods that like we learn a lot about and see what's happening in other places in the world at that time that we wouldn't learn about.
Yeah.
because like go to Europe during like the Renaissance periods. Okay, but what is going on in Africa in those times? What's going on in North America in those times?
Hmm.
Or yeah, like that would be so interesting just to finding the little pieces like adjacent to our big histories that we don't know about because like records were lost. We just don't talk about it, like that type of thing.
That
Because
would be really cool.
one thing that brings to mention, I think it was an ally of either Egypt or Rome. If I'm, it's one of those places that they had. I think it was Rome, ancient Rome, that they had a really great relationship trade route with this one major city of the time. And we know about it because it's been recorded in like people's diaries and stuff, but
Yeah.
we don't know where that city was because everyone is like, oh yeah, everybody knows where that place is. So
Everybody
nobody
knows
wrote
it.
it down. So it would be so interesting to me to go to that time, find out where that city was, and then, make note of it for modern day history book. Like
Yeah.
whatever my modern day at that time would be like. We could, for lack of a better word, complete our history books.
Yes, exactly. And I'm like trying to think of like a modern example of that, but like we live in the information age where literally everything has a name and it is recorded somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another good story that I know about is this guy who was in ancient Greece. Um, I can't remember my name because these are all just like fun facts that I've stored in the recesses of my brain to be called upon for this very purpose.
Right.
But there was this one guy in ancient Greece when archaeologists found his house, it was just filled with clay tablets um, of his business because basically he ran a business,
I
but
think
he
I've
was
heard
a
about this
scam
guy.
artist.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a scam artist, and like in his house is just clay tablets, like stone tablets, just with bad reviews and like hate mail about this guy that he stored and kept for years in his house. And for anyone that isn't familiar with like those stone tablets and stuff, they are hard to maintain, and that's why we don't have a lot of like too much history in like those periods because they were all recorded on stone tablets and those are hard to maintain. So the fact that not only did he have that many, but like the fact that he maintained them so well, like he took pride in people being angry at him, and like he seems like a fun guy to hang out with.
No, yeah. I love that. That is one of the things I love about history is that like even though like technologically and societally humanity has changed a lot, behaviorally we have really not changed all that much.
No, humans are the exact same. We are petty as hell and always have been. And
Hmm.
always antisocial, just in different ways. Now we're
Yeah.
antisocial via our phones, whereas back then we were antisocial via like embroidery and sewing and like
Yeah.
reading, that type of stuff. Humans have not changed.
Yeah, no,
So
that's
like basically you would just fit right in anywhere you went.
mhm. Yeah, no, that's super cool. Uh Move now that we've discussed like as far as history, like where we would want to visit in Earth history, where would you want to visit in the far future?
Yeah, I don't know like the future is harder for me for some reason.
It
Like
is.
just
No, I completely
imagining
agree.
because that is all completely theoretical, whereas the history we have basis of
Exactly.
knowledge and that stuff, but in history we're just completely theoretical. Like
Yeah, no, the only thing that really jumps to mind, like forget Mars. I want to be there when humans finally make it to the Alpha Centauri system and start
Mm,
colonizing that. Like I want to be there to see what the Alpha Centauri system looks like when humans reach it.
yeah, I think for me, like the landmarks in the future that I would go to would be like big technological advancements, like you said,
Hmm.
traveling to another solar system and being able to like colonize there. And then other things such as, like, oh, I all the things slipped out of my mind, but like the invention of the time machine, like we would go
Right.
back and
Yeah.
we would go forward and visit that, or um I don't know if I would go to like the future to like visit any family members.
No.
Like
Yeah.
I don't think I would be able to go like 100 years in the future and be like, "Hi, I'm your great 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 grandma." Like that just seems weird. It also
No.
seems
Yeah. I wouldn't. I wouldn't want
almost
to
like a
do that either.
violation of privacy in my head too.
Exactly. Like I don't want to. Like I don't want to visit my own past. I don't want to visit like my family members in the future. Like I don't want to do that.
Yeah, see, I would be okay like visiting like my family's past, but like just not as me, like to
Hmm.
them I would just be like a neighbor, like I would be witnessing it but not inserting myself into it as their relative,
Right.
because again, that would be so freaky.
That would be freaky. That's the reason that like most time travel sci-fi has the rule that you can't like visit your own timeline and stuff like that.
Mhm. Yeah. See, now what I would be looking forward to in the future is the day when we as humans are finally able to recreate Star Wars.
Yes. Because you know someone's going to do it.
Oh, absolutely. People are already trying to make lightsabers.
Yeah.
Like, but like when we're able to get more like widespread actual lightsabers, now that would be something I would visit. I would love that.
I look forward to the Great Battle of Yavin reenactment in like 2687.
Yes. Oh yeah, that would be incredible. Like it would also be cool to visit like visit NASA on like the day when like they discover how to um jump through space.
Hmm.
Like hyperdrive on
Yeah,
like
like
spacefaring
yeah,
machines.
exactly. That would be super cool as well. Honestly, I don't want to really talk about like first contact stuff because we already talked about that in like the aliens and
Yeah.
UFOs episode, but that would also be cool to witness.
Hmm. And I mean, like, if there is life outside of our universe, which maybe there is, maybe there isn't, we have no way of knowing right now.
Yeah,
It would, like, the farther into the future you go, it would almost be guaranteed that you would encounter it.
exactly. Yes. Yeah, no, it is statistically improbable that we are the only life in the entire universe.
Yeah. Yeah, and like the far enough in the future you go, you're probably more likely to encounter things because we have that technology now.
Hmm. Exactly, exactly.
And then like it would be so weird to come across like an alien planet, because usually when you think aliens in the media, it's portrayed as like they are way more advanced than us, like they come to us.
Hmm.
Like that's always how it's portrayed for the most part. But, like what if we found like a planet like way down in the future that was like that was alien life,
Hmm.
but kind of like in the same progression of we are, like like they're on like the same, if their progression is the same scale as ours, they're in like a farther path. Like if we find alien life that's in like the tribal stage of their
Yeah.
existence,
And
that would
also
be interesting.
that would be very interesting. And it's interesting because without faster than light travel, like traveling to another planet, that planet is not going to be the same when you get there as when
No,
you left. Yeah.
no, absolutely not. Like it's just insane to like think about this type of stuff
Yeah.
because who knows what the future is going to be for humanity.
Yeah, because
Obviously not us. We are not time travelers.
exactly, because even when we look at like stars and planets up in the sky, like we're looking at them like how they were 50 years prior, 80 years prior, however far away they are in light years.
Yeah, and like there's even a possibility that like the stars we're looking at, we won't see we won't see the same stars in our sky as we would 50 years from now because
Yeah.
other stars will reach us, some stars will have stopped, like would have died, and so we'll stop seeing their light. Like the constellations are going to be different.
Yeah.
Like 500 years down the road, we're probably going to have way more because the stuff farther back in the universe would finally be reaching Earth.
I do like the idea that in like 100 years we have to redraw new constellations.
Yeah. Yeah, well, because especially like there's a lot of stars in the constellations that we see in this day and age that we know those stars are like on their last legs, if not
Hmm.
already dead.
Yeah, exactly.
It's, yeah.
Yeah, time travel, it's freaky, but it's a cool concept to discuss like
Mm
this because like it's always fun to imagine the possibility.
hmm. Mm hmm. Yeah. And like one thing that would be great is I've heard this concept before. I mean, everybody's heard this concept before, but like people organizations that time travel for like certain things, you know, like we saw it in Loki, we saw it in the Umbrella Academy, we've seen it so many times.
Yeah,
Like just the fact that like there are
like people that make
organizations,
time travel part of their enterprise.
yeah, like that's insane. Like time travel spies, time travel assassins, like time travel scientists, like there would be so many different areas of work within that time travel zone. And like especially with time travel, if you're getting research on something, like if you're a scientist, if you're doing what I said, like completing the history books, you would have to blend in, so you would have to have seamstresses from those, like for
Yeah.
those times, like be able to make you clothes to fit in that type of stuff. And like you'd have to have like etiquette teachers from every era to
Yeah,
teach you like the
you would have
mannerisms of
to
life in
blend
those
in, yeah.
times. Because
There's
if
so many small details like that.
hmm because if we didn't have consequences, I could literally just go to ancient Greece and look like this and nothing would happen. I could just do what I want to do, nothing would happen. But if this were to become an actual possibility, there would absolutely be consequences because, you know, the whole butterfly effect thing.
Hmm.
So you would have to have those areas to be able to minimize the consequences as much as possible. And that also brings to mind like another question that would be interesting to answer.
Okay.
It's like, what if we developed the ability to time travel? Would it be like would it be a better decision to just not use it in order to keep the universe, in order to keep things quote unquote normal?
That is the thing, honestly.
Like, is it ethical to time travel?
Yeah, that is another thing that I've like
Yeah.
considered. Uh, the my short answer, at least, is like no. I don't think time travel is ethical, as you say, because it's I don't know. Because looking at it from like a present, looking at it like from a present day mindset type of thing, like you are inserting yourself into a time, into a society that is not yours, whether your intention is to change it or not. Like, you are still endangering that society by even being there.
Yeah. And the thing is, we would have no idea of knowing what actions of ours would affect actions in the world.
Yes.
Because who knows? Like, you go back in time, you find a pretty flower that we don't have in the modern day, and so you dig it up to bring it back with you. But that we have no way of knowing if picking that one flower could ultimately cause the extinction of humankind in your present time.
Yeah. Also, like, uh, the like causality of time, the fact that you picking that flower is the reason that we don't have flowers up and those flowers up until that point that you went back and got it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just there's so many minuscule aspects of this that we aren't even able to wrap our heads around. Like, it's classic
Yes.
butterfly effect or like ripple effect. You just put one drop in like an ocean and like it just ripples out forever.
Yes. Exactly.
Like, it's there's so many like questions and things to consider with time travel. And again, that goes into the thought of like the organizations that use time travel for whatever means. They have to be able to do that with as minimal disruptions as possible.
Yes, exactly. This is a little off topic, but you reminded me that in the universe of Doctor Who there are people called time agents. But I don't know if they ever explain in the show like what the time agents do. They are just called time agents.
They're agents of time.
Yes.
My best guess from like my very very minimal knowledge of Doctor Who and just based on the name time agents alone, it would be like to make sure that, you know, the doctor when or like other time lords when they're traveling through time, they aren't breaking things.
Hmm. Yeah.
And like have you seen the Umbrella Academy, Neptune?
I've seen season 1.
So yeah, so you know in that one that the people that work in the time area, like the briefcases that time travel,
Yes.
they're there to make sure that things go properly
Right.
by their own hands. You know, like the um with like the assassination of JFK, stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
they are the ones that orchestrate it to make sure that other people who might have the technology don't interrupt things, because that is very much brought out and talked on in season 2 of the Umbrella Academy.
Okay, which I still need to see. I have not seen it yet.
Yes, I would recommend it. Season 2 is very good, and season 3 is going to be coming out pretty quick.
Yes, it is.
I don't think they have announced an actual date for it, but it's going to be coming out, and I'm so excited for it. But the fact that they brought up those questions in the second season, yeah, it brings to light like a lot of different things.
It really does. That's a that brings up a whole new discussion about what does society look like with time travel, and or
Mm-hmm.
rather with time travel being available for public use.
Yeah, yeah, because I think it would have to be very, very regulated and like very specific.
It would,
If it
yes.
were to be given out to like the greater public, they would have
Yeah,
to
it has
have,
to be, it has to like only be used for certain things. Like
yeah.
it can't just be used for whatever.
And like the thing is, they would have to be able to have a way to make everyone's time travel inconsequential.
Right, yes.
Because if they didn't have that, like if they weren't able to, fix things or have them go normally, the
Hmm.
greater public could not have that technology because as a member of the greater public, we mess things up all the time.
All the time. And that's going to be the hardest. That's going to be the hardest job in that
Yeah.
theoretical society, is impressing on the public how much responsibility comes along with being able to time travel.
Yeah. And like, just think about it like time travel and guns.
Hmm.
Like time travel in the future would be like guns in the modern day, which is, we're not going to go much deeper into
We're
that
not
in that
gonna,
analogy.
not today.
Not to, no, that's a conversation for later, if ever.
If ever.
But yeah, no, like people are going, if, like, they need to have that technology built in to make the time travel inconsequential before they give it to the people.
Hmm.
Otherwise, if they just have a list of rules, people aren't going to listen to the rules.
Yeah, no.
Like they're going to do what they want to do regardless on if it's allowed or not.
Hmm.
And if every person time traveling does something and it's not accounted for, that's going to send everything all haywire and everything. And like
Yeah.
people are going
Who
to
who
stop
knows?
existing.
Who knows what would
Like,
happen?
yeah. So they would either need to have like an organization to go back and like fix all of the things that normal people do to make sure that everything goes according like as it's supposed to be able to keep them going to that point in their evolution and like their development, or they're going to have it already integrated.
Like a time janitor.
Like a whole city of time janitors, because
Yeah.
they're gonna need a lot of them if because like you better believe that if a good majority of people are able to have access to time travel, they're gonna go everywhere.
Oh yeah.
Like, because like we just said, we're gonna go so many places if we have the ability to do so with no consequences. And like even if we had consequences, the majority of the people aren't going to think about how it's going to affect it.
Yeah,
And
no.
you could have one idea, but we have no way of controlling what happens after our initial actions.
Hmm. Exactly. So I think we are just about coming to the end of this discussion.
I think so, yeah. And
Are there
we've
any
been recording about an hour.
are there any final thoughts about time travel before we wrap things up?
I mean, if like somehow I get the ability to time travel in my life, absolutely I would do it.
Hmm. Yeah, no,
If I like, especially like if I don't have to think about the consequences, or like I can do so with a free conscience, I will absolutely time travel.
yes. I completely agree. Like just knowing who I am, if that ability was somehow uh given to me in some way. Like I definitely would. I would be very careful about it, as careful as I could be,
Mm-hmm.
but like I 100%
Yeah,
would.
like I'm not gonna go back in time and like declare myself a leader like, or like a prophet or something because I know what's gonna happen. Like, I
Right.
would just be like a bystander. Like, if I went to like the Aztecs or like any like other like society that we know of, I would like literally what I would do is I would just be a bystander. I would sell pottery.
Yes.
Like, or some, like, I would just be like a humble little merchant. I wouldn't try to change the world or anything. I would just open up like a little shop and just observe,
Note to self, learn how
you
to
know?
make pottery.
Yeah. Yeah, or like whatever like talent that I would have in this day, I would transfer it to whatever time I was in and just
Hmm.
be a little bystander. Because I mean, you like, do you know what kind of gossip like a merchant or like an ancient hairdresser would hear? Like,
Exactly.
that would be so interesting.
Oh my god. That would be really interesting.
Like, now I'm just picturing, like, just like a tiny little market stall in the Agora in Athens. And, like, just hearing about, is like, oh, this guy's been away, but his wife is pregnant. Like, darn Zeus, whatever. Like, that would be,
Darn that darn
like,
Zeus.
yeah, I would just like be there eating my whatever is the equivalent of popcorn in that time, you know, just listening, selling my urns.
We love to see it. That would be super cool.
That is the ideal life, you know?
Hmm.
But you know, without the life expectancy of 30.
Yeah, to throw a John Mulaney quote in here, I just want to sit here and feed my birds.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good ending point for
I
the
think
episode.
that sounds like a good ending. Sounds like a good
It just
ending.
I just want to sit there and feed the
I just want
birds.
to sit there and feed my birds. All right. But yes, thank you all, dear listeners, so much for joining us for this discussion about time travel. Hope you enjoyed. If you want to give us feedback, you're welcome to join the Discord. Link is in the show description. If you want to support the podcast in some way, we have our Redbubble shop and our Patreon. If you subscribe at the Tree Eater level, you get a shout out at the beginning of the episode, as well as the full unedited Patreon exclusive cuts of the episodes. um and yeah, I think that just about wraps it up.
I think
Follow our
so.
social medias if you want to stay updated about when new episodes come out. And with that, I think we will catch you all next time. So have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye bye.